The stars twinkled peacefully in the vast darkness of space as Captain Reed stood on the bridge of his patrol ship. The Stellar Alliance had given him a simple job: watch the border, report anything unusual, and maintain the peace. For 300 years, the Alliance had ruled these sectors without any real challenges. Their technology was superior, their species were united, and their power was absolute. At least, that's what they thought. "Captain, we're picking up an unknown vessel," reported Officer Smith from his monitoring station. "It's not matching any known signatures in our database." Reed walked over to the main screen, his tall frame casting a shadow over the holographic display. The ship was small, clearly made for carrying people rather than fighting. Its design was rough, functional, and completely foreign to their records. "Life signs?" Reed asked, his antenna twitching with curiosity. "About 200 beings. Carbon-based, they appear to be in some form of suspended animation." Smith's fingers danced over the controls. "Sir, they're using primitive fusion drives. I don't even think they have proper shield technology." Reed smiled. Another primitive species trying to reach the stars. The Alliance had seen dozens like them. Some were accepted as protectorates. Others were guided away from Alliance space, and a few were simply removed if they proved troublesome. "Open communications," Reed ordered. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The response came in various formats: radio waves, light pulses, and even some basic quantum signatures. The ship's computer took a few minutes to decode the message. "Greetings. This is the Earth colony ship Hope. We come in peace, seeking new worlds to settle. Please respond." Earth. Reed had never heard of it. He checked the Alliance database again, but found nothing. "Send them our standard greeting package. Warning Level 3. Warning Level 3 was clear enough. Turn back or face consequences. The Alliance didn't like unknown variables in their territory, especially not potential colonists who might one day become rivals. The Earth ship's response was unexpected. Instead of turning away, it continued forward. More messages arrived, talking about friendship, cooperation, and shared knowledge. Reed found it amusing. These humans, as they called themselves, actually thought they could negotiate as equals. "Sir," Smith's voice carried a note of concern. "They're not changing course. The colony ship is still heading toward the Centauri sector." Reed's amusement faded. The Centauri sector was rich in resources and perfect for colonization. The Alliance had plans for those worlds. He couldn't allow some primitive species to interfere. "Send warning Level 1. Make it clear this time." The message was sent, carrying with it the full authority of the Stellar Alliance. The humans would see their most advanced weapons, their vast fleets, and the consequences of defiance. Minutes passed. The colony ship slowed, but didn't stop. "They're responding, sir. They say they have a right to seek new homes. They're asking for dialogue." Reed's patience ended. In 300 years, no one had dared to challenge Alliance authority so openly. "Power up the main cannon. Target their propulsion systems." "Sir," Smith looked uncertain. "They're civilians. The ship is carrying families." And they were warned. "The Alliance doesn't make idle threats, Officer Smith. Fire." The beam of energy cut through space like a blade of light. It was meant to disable the engines, to force the humans to accept a Tau back to their world. But something went wrong. Their primitive hull couldn't handle the energy discharge. Secondary explosions rippled through the ship, tearing it apart from the inside. Reed watched in silence as the colony ship broke into pieces. The suspended animation pods ejected automatically, but in the cold of space, their occupants wouldn't last long. "Send a report to command," Reed ordered, his voice flat. "Unknown vessel destroyed after failing to comply with Alliance directives. Primitive species, no significant threat. Recommend updating border patrol protocols." As his ship turned away, Reed felt a slight unease. Something about these humans had been different. They hadn't shown fear, even at the end, but it didn't matter now. They were gone, and the Alliance's borders were secure. He didn't know it yet, but he had just started a chain of events that would shake the Alliance to its core. Somewhere out there, another human ship picked up the Hope's final transmission. And humans, as the Alliance would learn, had very long memories when it came to their dead. 3 months passed since the destruction of the colony ship Hope. The Stellar Alliance continued its routine patrols, its massive ships moving through space like sharks in a quiet ocean. None of them noticed anything unusual about the silence that followed. After all, silence was what they expected from defeated enemies. That silence broke on a quiet Tuesday. Officer Smith sat at his usual station aboard the Alliance flagship, sipping his morning drink when every screen in the command center lit up at once. The message was simple, transmitted in perfect Alliance standard language. You were warned. We remember. At first, they thought it was a joke. Then the same message appeared at every Alliance outpost across 50 star systems. Each transmission came from a different direction, using the Alliance's own encrypted channels. Impossible, muttered Commander Wilson, watching the reports flood in. These frequencies are secured. No primitive species could crack them so quickly. But the humans had done more than just crack their codes. They had studied them, learned them, and now used them better than the Alliance itself. The Council called an emergency meeting. Representatives from 30 species gathered in the Great Hall, their voices a mix of concern and dismissal. Most thought it was just a lucky hack, a final act of defiance from a dying race. Then the second message came. Every screen in the Council chamber switched to video footage. It showed the destruction of the Hope from multiple angles, recorded by Alliance ships themselves. But this wasn't the sanitized version in their reports. This showed the escape pods, the families inside, the last transmissions of parents trying to save their children. How did they get this? Demanded Council Leader Marcus, his scaled skin turning pale. Those records were classified. The answer came from their own intelligence division. Sir, reported Agent Lee, we've detected unusual activity in our networks over the past 3 months. Someone has been copying our tactical databases, studying our shield frequencies, analyzing our weapon systems. 3 months. Marcus interrupted. That's impossible. It would take years to understand our technology, let alone. A third message cut him off. This one was different. It showed human ships, but not the primitive vessels they had expected. These ships had Alliance technology, modified and improved. The humans hadn't just copied their designs, they had made them better. We tracked their progress. Agent Lee continued, his voice shaking slightly. They didn't start learning 3 months ago. They'd been watching us for years, hiding their true capabilities. The Hope was a test, and we failed it. The Council chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives demanded immediate military action. Others called for diplomatic solutions. A few simply sat in stunned silence, realizing what they had awakened. Down in the archives, an old Alliance scholar found records from centuries past. Stories of other species that had encountered humans, of wars that ended in unexpected ways. Humans, it seemed, had a special talent. When faced with superior technology, they didn't just adapt to it. They mastered it, improved it, and turned it against their enemies. The final message of the day arrived just as the Council was about to vote on their response. Every communication system in Alliance space carried the same words. Your warning meant nothing to us. Now here's ours. You have 24 hours to evacuate any civilians from your military installations. After that, we will demonstrate exactly what we learned from you. The message was signed simply, Commander James, Human Warship Retribution. In his private chambers, Council Leader Marcus reviewed the intelligence reports again. The humans hadn't just copied Alliance technology. They had found its flaws, its weaknesses, the things the Alliance had been too proud to fix. And now, somewhere out there, a warship was coming. A ship built by a species that had turned 3 months of grief into a weapon of revenge. The Alliance had ruled space for 300 years through fear and superior technology. but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. An enemy that learned from defeat, that grew stronger from loss, that turned their own arrogance against them. As the evacuation orders went out, Marcus realized their greatest mistake. They had thought they were dealing with primitives. Instead, they had attacked the most dangerous kind of species, one that would never forget, never forgive, and never stop until justice was served. The Alliance Defense Fleet waited at their strongest military outpost. 20 ships, each carrying enough firepower to level a continent, formed a defensive wall in space. They had evacuated their civilians as demanded, but refused to show any other sign of weakness. Behind them, the massive space station's weapons pointed outward, ready to destroy any threat. The human ship arrived exactly when they said it would. The Retribution dropped out of hyperspace like a knife cutting through fabric. It was smaller than expected, barely half the size of an Alliance battleship. Its hull gleamed with a strange dark metal that seemed to drink in the light of nearby stars. "This is Commander James of the human warship Retribution." The transmission came clearly through their best encryption. "You have one last chance to surrender those responsible for the Hope's destruction." On the Alliance command station, Admiral West laughed. "One ship. That's their great revenge." He opened a channel to respond. "This is Admiral West of the Stellar Alliance. Your demands are rejected. Leave our space immediately or be destroyed." The Retribution's only response was to move forward. "Open fire," West ordered. "Show them what real power looks like." 20 ships fired at once. Energy beams powerful enough to crack moons shot toward the human vessel. The space station added its own weapons to the barrage. For a moment, the void lit up brighter than day. When the light faded, the Retribution was untouched. How? West started to ask, but then he saw it. The dark metal of the hull wasn't just absorbing light. It had absorbed their weapon's energy too. The Retribution's first shot wasn't a weapon at all. It was a signal that cut through their shields like they didn't exist, accessing every ship's computer at once. Systems started shutting down. Weapons went offline. The mighty Alliance fleet hung in space, powerless. "Interesting thing about your technology." Commander James's voice came through every speaker. "You never thought anyone would understand it well enough to find its flaws. That's the problem with being on top too long. You get lazy." On his bridge, James stood calmly, watching through the viewscreen. He was a plain-looking man in a simple uniform, nothing like the monster the Alliance had expected. Behind him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, each movement precise and planned. "Your shields only work against energy you don't recognize," James explained, almost like a teacher giving a lesson. "So we built our hull to copy the energy signature of your weapons and send it back. Your own shots basically gave us the key to your defenses." Admiral West grabbed a backup communicator. "All ships, switch to manual controls. Prepare for physical combat." "That won't work either," James said. His voice carried no anger, just determination. "We didn't just study your weapons. We studied you. Your species never developed backup systems because you never thought you'd need them. You never trained your crews to fight without computers because you thought your computers couldn't be beaten." The Retribution moved through the Alliance fleet like a shark through minnows. Each pass brought another ship under its control. Some crews tried to fight back with emergency weapons. Others attempted to flee. None succeeded. "The Hope carried families," James continued. "Children who would never grow up. Parents who would never see their dreams realized. You killed them because they wouldn't obey your rules, because you thought being powerful meant being right." In less than an hour, the entire Alliance fleet was dead in space. No ships destroyed, no lives lost, but every vessel as helpless as a stone. "We could kill you all," James said, his words reaching every ship. "We could do exactly what you did to us. But that's not why we're here. We're here to show you that humanity doesn't just copy technology. We improve it. We don't just learn from our enemies. We surpass them." The Retribution's final move was to transmit a new set of codes to every ship. When the crews entered them, They regained minimal control, enough to limp home, but not to fight. "Take this message back to your council," James ordered. "This is just one ship, one crew. Imagine what the rest of humanity is preparing while you've been focused on us. You have 1 week to turn over those responsible for the Hope's destruction. After that, we stop being merciful." As the crippled Alliance fleet retreated, they finally understood. They hadn't just awakened an enemy. They had awakened a species that turned defeat into strength, that learned from every failure, and that would rewrite the rules of war itself to achieve justice. The Alliance Council chamber had never been so quiet. Admiral West's report of the Retribution's attack left everyone stunned. The most powerful fleet in their space, defeated without a single shot fired in return. But that was only the beginning of their problems. "We found these in our central database," Agent Lee announced, projecting images onto the main screen. "The humans didn't just study our current technology. They dug through our history." The images showed other destroyed ships, other species who had been removed from Alliance space over the centuries. Hundreds of incidents, all carefully hidden from public view, all perfectly documented by human hackers. "They're broadcasting these records to every colony world," Lee continued, his voice shaking. "Not just to our people, but to every species we've claimed to protect. They're showing everyone what we really are." Council leader Marcus slammed his fist on the table. "Shut down the networks. Stop these transmissions." "We can't," Lee replied. "They're using our own emergency channels, the same ones we built to control our colonies. If we shut them down, we lose control of half our territory." The chamber doors burst open. Captain Reed, the officer who had destroyed the Hope, stumbled in. His uniform was torn, his face bruised. "They found me," he gasped. "They found all of us who were there that day." The council guards helped Reed to a seat. "The humans," he continued, "they didn't just track us down. They sent the records of everything we've ever done to our families, our friends, our homeworlds. Everyone knows what we did. Not just to them, but to all the others before them." On the main screen, more images appeared. This time, they showed the Hope's final moments. But these weren't the official records. These were personal logs from the colony ship, showing families hugging their children before entering sleep pods, showing their dreams of building new homes, showing their last moments as Alliance weapons tore their ship apart. "How did they get these?" someone whispered. "We found their backup satellites," Lee explained. "The Hope wasn't just a colony ship. It was a test. They sent it to prove what we would do. They recorded everything, knowing we would show our true nature." The council erupted in argument. Some blamed Reed for starting this. Others blamed Marcus for years of cruel policies. A few tried to suggest immediate surrender to the humans. Then a new message arrived from the Retribution. The ship's cameras showed Alliance border outposts, defense stations, and patrol fleets. One by one, they were going dark. Not destroyed, just disabled. The humans had turned off their power, their weapons, their ability to hurt anyone else. "Your empire is built on fear." Commander James's voice rang through the chamber. "Fear of your weapons, fear of your technology, fear of your punishment. But you never ask yourselves one simple question. What happens when someone stops being afraid?" On every screen, in every Alliance world, the truth was spreading. Centuries of hidden crimes exposed. Decades of lies revealed. Species that had been told they were alone discovered each other, learned how the Alliance had kept them isolated and afraid. "We could destroy you," James continued, "but that's not justice. Justice is letting your own people see what you really are. Justice is watching your power break not from weapons, but from truth." The council members looked at each other, realizing their greatest weapons had been turned against them. Not their ships or their technology, but their secrets. The humans hadn't just beaten their defenses, they had shattered the fear that held their empire together. Marcus stood up, trying to maintain control. "We still have loyal worlds," he declared, "species who need our protection. Who will lead them if we fall? They don't need leaders who rule through fear, James replied. They need a chance to choose their own path. That's what humans fight for. Not just our own freedom, but everyone's right to choose. As the message ended, reports flooded in from across Alliance space. Colony worlds were declaring independence. Subject species were demanding representation. The fear that had held the Alliance together for centuries was evaporating, replaced by something more powerful: hope. In the council chamber, as their empire crumbled around them, they finally understood their greatest mistake. They had thought destroying the hope would silence humanity. Instead, it had awakened something unstoppable. A species that fought not just with weapons, but with truth, justice, and the unshakable belief that fear should never rule the stars. Deep within the Alliance's central command, Admiral Thompson stared at his private screen. For 20 years, he had served loyally, believing in the Alliance's mission of peace and unity. Now, he knew the truth, and he had made his choice. Retribution. This is Admiral Thompson. He transmitted on a hidden frequency. I can help you find what you're looking for. The response came instantly. Why should we trust you, Admiral? Because I lost family on the Hope, Thompson replied, his voice heavy with old pain. The Alliance told me it was an accident, that my daughter, her husband, and their children died from a ship malfunction. Now I know the truth. Aboard the Retribution, Commander James studied Thompson's file. The Admiral had indeed lost family on the Hope, but that wasn't why James trusted him. It was the records showing how Thompson had quietly helped other species over the years, bending rules to save lives the Alliance deemed worthless. The Council is moving their command center, Thompson continued. They're abandoning the capital, heading for a secret facility in the outer systems. I'm sending you the coordinates now. The Council's massive command ship pushed its engines to maximum speed. Around it, their remaining loyal forces formed a defensive screen. They had lost control of most of their territory, but they still had their most powerful weapons, their best ships, and their most fanatical followers. They cannot be allowed to escape, Thompson warned. The facility they're heading to, it holds weapons even our own people don't know about. Things they've stolen from species they destroyed. If they reach it, the Retribution changed course to intercept, but the Council fleet had a head start. For the first time, the humans would have to push their stolen and improved technology to its limits. All hands, battle stations, James ordered. They're running scared now. That makes them dangerous. The chase cut through Alliance space like a meteor storm. The Council ships burned their engines past safety limits. 3 of their escorts exploded from the strain. They didn't slow down to help the crews. On colony worlds below, people watched the streaks of light crossing their skies. The great Council of the Alliance, who had ruled them through fear for centuries, were running from a single human ship. Multiple ships approaching. The Retribution's sensors reported. They're not Alliance design. James smiled as new allies arrived. Ships from species the Alliance had oppressed joined the chase. They had modified their vessels with human improvements, turning tools of commerce into weapons of liberation. This is the Free Worlds Coalition, their leader announced. We'll help you catch them, Commander. They've run from justice long enough. The Council fleet approached an asteroid field. Instead of going around, they plowed straight through, losing more ships but maintaining their speed. They were only hours from their secret base. Admiral Thompson, James called. We need a way to slow them down. Sending you their shield frequencies, Thompson replied. And something else, the override codes for their engine safety systems. Be careful with those. If you shut down their engines too quickly at this speed. James understood. They had to stop the Council, but not at the cost of every life on those ships. That would make them no better than the Alliance itself. The Retribution's improved weapons found gaps in the Council ship's shields. Precise shots disabled engines, weapons, and communications. The Free World ships surrounded the fleet, cutting off escape routes. But the Council's command ship was still running, still pushing toward their hidden base. They had dialed their shields to maximum, drawing power from life support itself. They would rather suffocate than face justice. "Commander," Thompson's voice carried new urgency. "If they reach that facility, they have weapons that could destroy entire systems. Stolen technology they never should have had. You have to stop them, no matter the cost." The Retribution's crew looked to James. They had come seeking justice for the Hope, but now they faced a choice: stop the Council and save countless lives, or stay true to their principles and risk letting the guilty escape to kill again. James stood at his command station, watching the Council ship flee. The humans had already shown they were better than the Alliance at technology, at strategy, at telling truth from lies. Now they would show they were better at something else, making the hard choices that come with real power. The Council's command ship limped toward their secret base, trailing plasma and debris. Behind them, the Retribution closed the gap, its dark hull reflecting the light of nearby stars. The chase was almost over. "They're powering up something inside the asteroid," reported Lieutenant Peters from his sensor station. "Energy readings are off the charts." Commander James watched the massive space station emerge from its hiding place. The structure was ugly, a mix of different alien technologies grafted together like a monster made from spare parts. Now they knew where all those missing ships and species had gone. Their best discoveries had been stolen and hidden here. "Council vessel, power down your engines," James broadcast. "This is your final warning." The response came from Council leader Marcus himself. "You want to show everyone the truth. Here's the truth. We are superior. We take what we want because we deserve it. Watch what real power looks like." The space station's weapons powered up. They were unlike anything the Alliance had shown before. Stolen technology from a dozen dead civilizations, all pointed at the Retribution. "Sir," Peters called out, "those weapons, they could crack planets. If they fire all of them." James made his decision. "Broadcast on all frequencies, all languages. Show everyone what's about to happen here." The station fired first. Beams of impossible energy shot toward the Retribution. The human ship didn't dodge. Instead, its dark hull absorbed the energy, processed it, and sent it back in a precise beam that cut through the station's main power core. "Impossible," Marcus screamed. "Those weapons were unstoppable." "No," James replied calmly. "You just never faced someone who learned from their mistakes. We studied every species you destroyed, found every flaw in the weapons you stole. Your power was built on other people's work. We built ours on understanding." The station's weapons went dark. On the Council ship, Marcus ordered his crew to ram the Retribution. They refused. One by one, Alliance ships were powering down their weapons. Even their most loyal crews had seen enough. "This is Admiral Thompson to all Alliance forces," the old officer's voice rang out. "The Council has failed us. They led us away from what we should have been. Look at the humans. They could destroy us, but they choose mercy. That's real strength." The Council ship tried to run, but their damaged engines finally gave out. They hung in space, defeated not by superior weapons, but by their own fear and pride. "Commander," Peters reported, "we're getting surrender signals from all remaining Alliance ships. They're asking for terms." James stood from his command chair. "Send them our terms. The same ones we've offered from the start. Justice, not vengeance. Change, not destruction. A chance to be better than they were." Escape pods launched from the Council ship. Marcus and his inner circle were trying to run one last time. They didn't make it far. Ships from the Free Worlds Coalition caught them easily, towing them back to face judgment. "Attention all Alliance worlds and ships," James broadcast. "The Council's power is broken. Their weapons are disabled. Their secrets are exposed. But this isn't about replacing one empire with another. It's about choice." The Retribution's crew watched as their message spread. Worlds that had lived in fear for centuries were choosing their own paths. Some joined the Free Worlds Coalition. Others sought alliance with Earth. Many simply wanted to find their own way. The hope carried dreamers, James continued. People who believed in building something new. The Council killed them because they feared anything they couldn't control. But they didn't understand. You can't kill dreams. You can't stop people from hoping for something better. As Alliance ships lined up to surrender, James sent one final message to Earth. The mission was complete. Justice had been served not through destruction, but through truth and choice. Humanity had proven itself better than its enemies not by destroying them, but by showing them a better way. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if the galaxy itself was welcoming a new age. An age where power came not from fear and stolen weapons, but from understanding, cooperation, and the strength to choose mercy even when vengeance was possible. 1 year after the Council's fall, the Great Hall that once housed Alliance leadership now held something new. Representatives from 100 species gathered not in fear, but in hope. At the center of it all stood Commander James, his simple uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate dress of the former Council members. "The last prison ships have arrived at Earth," he announced to the gathered assembly. "The Council leaders will face trial for their crimes, not just against humanity, but against all species they harmed." Admiral Thompson, now leading the transition team, stood beside him. The old officer looked younger somehow, as if the weight of serving a corrupt system had finally lifted from his shoulders. "We finished cataloging the Council's secret base," Thompson reported. "The stolen technologies are being returned to their rightful owners, those whose civilizations were destroyed. Their discoveries will be shared freely, so their achievements will never be forgotten." The gallery erupted in applause. Species that had once been enemies now sat together, sharing stories and plans. The Free Worlds Coalition had grown into something greater, a true federation where every voice mattered. "The human ship Retribution," Thompson continued, "showed us something we had forgotten. Power isn't about having the strongest weapons or the most advanced technology. It's about the choices you make with that power." In orbit above, the Retribution floated peacefully among ships from dozens of worlds. Its dark hull no longer inspired fear. Instead, it had become a symbol of justice and change. "We've received the final vote," James announced. "The Federation Charter has been approved. Every world, every species will have an equal voice. No more empires, no more rulers claiming superiority. Just people working together, learning from each other." The new Federation headquarters would be built on neutral ground, the very colony world the Hope had been trying to reach. The first buildings were already rising, designed by architects from 20 different species. At its center would stand a memorial to the Hope and all others who had died under Alliance rule. "There's something else," Thompson added. "Something we found in the Council's deepest records. They didn't just fear humanity's ability to learn and adapt. They feared our biggest strength, our ability to bring people together." The records showed that humans weren't the first to resist Alliance power, but they were the first to do it not just for themselves, but for everyone. Where others sought revenge, humanity had sought justice. Where others would have built a new empire, they built bridges between worlds. "Earth has been officially invited to join the Federation," James announced. "We've accepted, but not as leaders. As equals. That's what the Hope was looking for, not just a new home, but new friends among the stars." The Great Hall's doors opened. Outside, crowds gathered from 100 worlds watched on massive screens. Children who had once been taught to fear other species now played together in the streets. Ships that had once been weapons of war now carried trade and travelers between worlds. "The Hope's journey didn't end when the Council destroyed it," James said softly. "It ended here, today, with all of us choosing a better path forward." In Earth's museums, they kept parts of the Retribution's hull, the dark metal that had turned enemies' weapons against them. But more important were the messages, the stories, the proof that had exposed the Council's crimes. They reminded future generations that the strongest weapon wasn't technology or force, it was truth. One last thing, James announced. The Retribution will be decommissioned. Not destroyed, but transformed. Its technology will be studied openly, shared with all Federation members. And the ship itself will become a school, teaching diplomacy and cooperation instead of war. As the assembly ended, James walked through the corridors of the new Federation headquarters. On the walls hung pictures of the Hope, its passengers, and all others who had dreamed of a better future among the stars. They had not died in vain. Their dream lived on in this new age of cooperation and understanding. Outside, the sun set on the new colony world. Ships from Earth arrived regularly now, carrying new dreamers, new colonists, new friends. But they didn't come alone. Ships from every Federation world flew with them, all of them together, all of them free. The stars had changed, not in their light or their position, but in what they meant. They were no longer distant points of fear and mystery. They were bridges between friends, paths to new discoveries, and most importantly, they were hope. Hope for a future where no species would ever again rule through fear, where power meant responsibility, and where dreams of peace could finally come true.